Our nation was founded on the fundamental principle that all people should have the freedom to live, to worship, and to be without fear of violence or persecution. For years, Muslims in America and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks. And so today, I am proud to announce the Biden-Harris administration will develop our nation's first national strategy to counter Islamophobia. This strategy will be a comprehensive and detailed plan to protect Muslims and those perceived to be Muslim from hate, bigotry, and violence.
Welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtedar, your host. Today I'm going to talk about Kamala Harris's pick for the vice president. But before that, subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and share this video with your socio-political network. It is Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. There was a lot of speculation for the past 2 weeks nearly as to who would be her running mate. There were some front runners like Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, Pete Buttigieg, who is the Secretary of Transport, Kelly, who is a senator in Arizona, and he has won this purple state, or shall we say this battleground state, twice. And so there was also Andy Beshear of Kentucky. But in the end, it came down to basically Tim Walz versus Josh Shapiro, and a lot of Democratic, shall we say, powerhouses and spokespersons were all out there in the net, basically advocating for Josh Shapiro. Their argument was. So it was very interesting for those who were arguing for Josh Shapiro, did not talk about any personal capabilities or some virtues that he would bring in. They kept saying that he's the governor of Pennsylvania, a very popular governor in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is critical. Some people argue that it's like a 35%. If you win Pennsylvania, you have won the presidency if you're a Democrat by 35%. So it's the most important, shall we say, battleground state in the presidential election. So winning Pennsylvania is critical for the Democratic candidate. And so Josh Shapiro would, I mean, I don't know how automatic it is that if you're from the state, you will win the state. But nevertheless, that was the argument, that he would win Pennsylvania for Kamala Harris and his ticket. But there was lots of positives about Tim Walz. People were saying that he has this folksy approach. Even though he was unknown just 2 weeks ago, he became very popular with the Democratic rank and file, and lots of grassroots people were just charmed by him. He basically reframed the Trump campaign by giving it a simple name that everybody can understand, that it's weird. And to a great extent, Kamala Harris has also adopted that. And so now the Harris-Walz ticket is labeling that the Donald Trump's campaign is weird.
These guys are just weird. That's who they are. So it isn't much else. Don't give them the power. Don't lift these guys up like they're sometimes heroes. Everybody in this room knows, I know it as a teacher, a bully has no self-confidence. A bully has no strength. They have nothing.
The magic of that is that you don't have to use terms which can be seen as insulting or prejudicial or pompous, like he's a threat to democracy. If you look at the democracy index, democracy in the United States declined even during Obama's 2 terms and also during Biden's. There has been no uptick in the democracy rating of the United States in the 3.5 years that Joe Biden has been president. And Joe Biden has really not done anything for democracy worldwide, except spending billions of dollars to save a hybrid kleptocracy in Ukraine. But this idea that the Trump administration, Trump campaign is weird, is kind of appealing to a lot of people, and everybody intuitively sees the weirdness of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and so you don't have to give it another word. Weird is good enough. So in that way, Tim Walz really shot up in terms of his appeal to be put on the ticket. Apparently in history, no vice presidential candidate will actually be a decisive factor in winning elections. They can cause you to lose elections, but I'm not very sure that they can win elections for you. But Shapiro had some negatives, which Tim Walz had none. There's nothing negative about Tim Walz except to say that Pennsylvania is more critical than Minnesota. The chances of a Democrat winning Minnesota at the moment are much higher than in winning Pennsylvania. And therefore, the electoral mathematics-wise, he is less important than a governor of Pennsylvania or governor of Michigan. But with Josh Shapiro, there were several negatives. He is seen as centrist, which means, remember, moving to the center means moving closer to the Republicans. So you have the Republicans on the right, then you have the center, and then you have the left. So to say that Shapiro was right, it also means that his policies are much closer to Donald Trump's than Tim Walz. Tim Walz is a socialist. He is supported by the unions, and he's supported by the progressives. He's clearly one of the most progressive candidates among the top 5 contenders for the vice president's position. Whereas Josh Shapiro is seen as centrist, he had turned off the teachers' union by advocating for charter schools, but his policies towards Israel were the problematic. So basically, what Josh Shapiro would have done is maybe he would have increased the chances of the ticket winning Pennsylvania, but bringing him in would have essentially increased the chances of Kamala Harris losing Minnesota, Michigan, and also doing not so well in other parts where there are very strong presence of Muslims and Arabs and young people and progressives. Remember, this is not just about Muslims. The reason why I say Muslims and Arabs all the time, because there are lots of Christian Arabs in the United States whose positions on Gaza are no different from that of American Muslims, no different from those of most of the young people. Anybody below the age of 35 clearly sees what's happening in Gaza as a genocidal war. They also understand that history did not begin on October 7. They also understand that there has been a 75-year occupation and systematic deprivation of fundamental rights of Palestinians, both in West Bank and Gaza, and what the settlers have been doing, the terrorism of the settlers. All of that is available history. If you're younger than 35, you know this history, and you understand what it has done to the Palestinians, the systematic dehumanization, all of that. So it's the young ones, the progressives who understand this, people like Bernie Sanders. And on top of that, you have, of course, Muslims and Arabs who have a very strong sympathy for the Palestinian plight and who are strongly supportive of the right of Palestinians to have a state of their own. So they would have seen Josh Shapiro as just another Joe Biden. And so in many ways, Kamala Harris has done in 2 weeks what Joe Biden could not do. She has done 2 remarkable things. Let me say it again. 2 remarkable things. 1, united the Democratic Party. And number 2, rejuvenated them. There is a revival of the Democratic Party. Now, you could say that this is Kamala Harris's race to lose. She's already ahead in the polls. Joe Biden was lagging behind in the polls. Nationally and in every basically battleground state, he was behind Trump by many points, in some places 5 to 6 percentage points. So there was a sense of depression in the Democratic Party. It was inevitable that Biden was going to lose to Donald Trump. Biden in 2020 was seen as the only Democrat who would beat Trump. And in 2023 and 2024, he has become as the only Democrat who cannot beat Trump. And yet, so the party was in disarray and it was very divided. The progressives obviously see Joe Biden as Genocide Joe, supporting the genocide, no matter what. It's still going on, even today. And that's what he's going to do till he's kicked out of the White House. Joe Biden is just going to be Netanyahu's poodle, what Tony Blair was to G.W. Bush. Biden is to Netanyahu. No matter what Netanyahu does, Biden's ironclad support. Remember that? Ironclad support, which means no matter what you do, you commit a genocide, I will support you. You break all international laws, I will support you with money, with weapons, etc. Netanyahu orchestrated an assassination in Iran to trigger a war with Iran and to completely scuttle the ceasefire dialogue in Gaza. And yet, how does Biden respond to this? By sending 2 aircraft carriers and troops, US troops, who, by the way, some of them have been injured in Iraq by some of the Iranian proxies. So the US is supporting militarily, financially, legally, etc. This is all, apparently Biden lives now only for 2 reasons, for Ukraine and for Israel, nothing else. So he divided Democratic. Not all Democrats were on par. If you go back and look in the last 5-6 months, the majority of Democrats disagreed with Biden's foreign policy towards Israel and Palestine. His foreign policy was more like Trump's and Republicans than that of Democrats. He did not represent the progressives. The youth, of course, completely disagree with him. They gave him the nickname Genocide Joe for obvious reasons. So Biden divided the Democratic Party, dispirited them. The donors had completely frozen. No money was coming in. And now suddenly Kamala Harris has united the party. Everybody is behind. Even the double haters, people like me who hate both Joe Biden as well as Donald Trump. Now we only hate Donald Trump. We are going to vote for Kamala Harris. I'm part of many discussion groups of American Muslims and progressives all across the country. And yes, some did vote for Donald Trump in 2020. The vote was over 75% for Biden, 25% for Trump. And it had now become the opposite. If Biden was on the ticket, I can tell you, the double haters would have either stayed at home, leading to Democrats losing the Senate and the House as well as the White House, because they are very critical to the blue wall, so-called blue wall of Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. And they might have even voted for Trump. It was like 50-50. 50% would vote for Trump, some for cultural reasons, and some because they are still angry with Biden. And others, the other 50% would not have voted for Biden, would have just stayed at home or voted for Jill Stein or some other third-party candidate. So in that sense, it would have caused a problem. But now it's amazing. Everybody's back. They're ready to vote for Kamala Harris. They're writing checks. So not only did she bring back the people that Biden had driven away, but she's united the party and she's rejuvenated it. In 1 week, they raised $300 million. It's historical. The enthusiasm is stunning. Kamala Harris raised $300 million in 1 week. But not only that, hundreds of thousands of new volunteers have signed up to support the Democratic Party. So she has done 2 things which are completely opposite of what Biden had done. Biden had dampened the spirits. The spirit of the Democrats was like his cognitive capabilities. 1, and 2, he had divided the party to such an extent that it was very clear. The uncommitted vote during the primaries was 500,000, and the total vote was just 14 million. So it was a very significant amount. And in these razor-thin margins that we have, that 500,000 would have had a huge impact. And a lot of them, a lot of people don't really vote in the primaries. So you can assume that the uncommitted vote was much, much bigger, would have been bigger in November. So Biden divided and dampened the spirits of the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris has united the party and she has rejuvenated it. So that's the good news. So let's all get our act together. And in November, we show Trump what is what. I'm your host, Muqtedar Khan. Thank you for watching Khanversations. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and share it with everybody else.